At a school, a cold-hearted teenager receives a confession from a beautiful female student. Seeing this scene, people look, another person is confessing to the main character. It seems like he was rejected again. This week must be the 5th time, right? He's already rejected a third of the girls in the school. This guy is really annoying. The cold-hearted teenager, named Tio Chin, turns away from the beautiful girl. He says, "In short, my message is very clear. I'm not interested in a relationship. You're a good person. Don't waste your energy on me." The girl who just confessed is frustrated and shouts, "Wait a minute, Tio Chin, why are you rejecting me?" Then Tio Chin, "What kind of girl do you actually like?" Hearing this, Tio Chin responds, "If I tell you, you'll give up, right?" After saying that, the guy stops and turns around, declaring, "I like perverts." His unexpected answer shocks everyone, including the beautiful girl. Tio Chin pats his chest and shouts loudly, "I like perverts, but please don't misunderstand me. It's okay if someone changes themselves, but those with such thoughts only make me hate them more. I like a natural pervert, someone who was born that way and will always be." Your words make that girl panic. What is Tio Chin joking about? We're students. How can we, in the name of Baijing Ritian, say such vulgar things? Meanwhile, another female student slowly steps forward. Her cold voice suddenly echoes, startling Tio Chin. "You like perverts, don't you?" The girl with white hair and a bright red headband is the school's discipline committee member named Bai Anan. She glances at the teenager before her and questions, "Right? You're a physically and mentally healthy student? How can you say such ridiculous things?" Facing this situation, Tio Chin sighs inwardly. "Oh, can you handle one thing at a time?" Exhausted, he covers his face with his hand and pleads, "Please, discipline committee, forgive me. I just want to go home." But of course, discipline member Bai Anan isn't so easily lenient. She chases after him. "If it weren't for your foul language, would I even be here? Tio Chin, you've violated 2 rules." She decisively writes scribbly notes in her disciplinary notebook. Violated Article 11 of the school rules, no intergender relationships. Violated Article 23, use of obscene language. Your actions not only bring disgrace to the school, but also embarrass other students. Such vulgar behavior deserves to be nailed to the school's humiliation log. Naturally, we have no right to interfere with normal love affairs, but your foul language and depraved morals must be corrected. Bayanan's accusations make Tio Chin temporarily, but then he continues to sigh and walk away. "Yes, discipline committee, you're right. I'll go receive my punishment now." Earlier, he had rejected the confession and now turns to blame Bayanan. "Why are you making things so hard for me?" Seeing this, Bayanan counters, "You should also reflect on yourself and forget about your meaningless actions." In reality, Tio Chin has his own thoughts. He has many reasons for not wanting to engage in relationships. A lonely soul, an energy-saving person, and even those around him. Like lonely souls are attracted to tangible things, and energy-saving people also long for a rosy life, not to mention me. But anyway, they are all living in reality. As for himself, he's not an ordinary person. Tio Chin glances at the girls behind him and continues walking, while the female students blame Bayanan, saying that, as a member of the discipline committee, her stern demeanor is too intimidating, and people like her will never have a boyfriend. Hearing this, Bayanan looks coldly and quickly glances around, making everyone hurriedly turn their backs and run away. A friend of Anan approaches, questioning, "Anan, are we being too rigid?" Bayanan immediately shakes her head in rebuttal. "Rigid? As members of the discipline committee, our duty is to maintain school discipline. If they don't disrupt it, why do we need such an attitude?" Hearing this, the friend sighs, "I know I can't convince you, but..." By the way, have you heard the rumors about that strange artist recently? No. Is there a painter who creates inappropriate animated films? Yes, it seems like he's from our school. They say his works are filled with all kinds of obscene and unsightly plots. A few months ago, from the context of his work, it was discovered that he was referencing scenes from our school. Upon hearing this, after a moment of silence, Bayanan appears interested and exclaims, "Ha ha ha! What's this about?" Her friend replies, "In short, if we catch him, I'll definitely twist him and take him." Her friend beside her is startled and nods. "That's right, but there are many people like him in the school. Catching him won't..." On the screen, a hot comic character is continuously moaning, making red-faced sounds. Why can't the holy water dispel them? Don't follow those moans. They're getting louder as countless strange tentacles wrap tightly around this girl's body. A white-haired female student is drawing those grotesque scenes on her computer. She sighs, just a bit more, thinking, exactly like this. Even if the scenes on campus are no longer useful, there are still many places where they can be used. Speaking of which, she automatically unbuttons her shirt and gazes at her own chest, thinking, should the drawing of the chest be more exposed? Her expression becomes more engrossed, curiosity evident in her eyes, and her mouth slightly. On the bed next to her seat is a female student uniform with the bright red headband of the school's discipline committee. Pausing for a moment, she exclaims, "This is so satisfying." Surprise strikes as it turns out to be Bayan from the school's discipline team. In the morning, her demeanor is serious and rigid, but now, as a secret comic artist, she appears completely different, a stark contrast. While drawing, she reviews the comments. Many comments from last week are dissatisfied and always urging updates. Besides, there are numerous critical comments saying, "This is pure trash comic, all just sexual content," or "The author probably has never seen tentacles before." It's sad that the most perverted artist has lost his creative spirit. Reading those words, Bayanan gets angry. "You idiots have no aesthetic sense. Do you even know what creativity is? I have no creativity because you all want to see more and more topics, so I don't draw well. Aren't tentacles just something you can only imagine? Who has ever actually seen them?" Bayanan becomes so furious that she breaks her pen. At this moment, she receives a message from Editor-in-Chief Bai Trong. "I just received a notification from the editorial board that you've ranked last in this issue's popularity poll. If you remain last for several consecutive issues, we will have to consider discontinuing your work." Like a burning oil barrel, Bayanan erupts with rage. "Discontinue my publication? Isn't this about backstabbing? It's so difficult. I could only have been published for many issues." Recalling all the comments earlier, she can't help but wonder why she's truly facing the risk of failure. Remembering something, she immediately turns to a corner of the room. "It's come to this, so there's no other way. Only by using that method can I boost my creative inspiration. These people force me to use the forbidden ancestral magic." She approaches the printer and starts it, printing out strange patterns from a preset project. Bayan dons a wizard's hat and, along with the printed papers, resolutely explains, "I summon the most talented creatures to this world." In her other persona as the witch Bayan, she continuously arranges the papers on the floor based on her notes. "As long as I set up the summoning battle, chant prayers, and offer blood to complete the pact, it'll be done, right?" At this stage, she still doesn't fully trust the effectiveness. The summons printed out should work, right? After all, it's really impossible to summon something too terrifying. She remembers the incantation. Kneeling on both knees, Bayanan begins loudly chanting the summoning spell from hell, a demonic aid from hell, a sinister voice invoking destruction. Thus a song from hell praising the grotesque body. The slave relying on my inherited name speaks up. Here, the fierce lady bites her own finger, causing fresh blood to flow out. "Use my inherited blood to appear." As soon as that fresh drop of blood touched the summoning circle, a magical light began to shine, enveloping the entire. Bayanan was momentarily amazed, covering her mouth. "Wow, she really can summon. Is that a tentacle?" She couldn't help but imagine a bizarre creature was about to appear, and began to worry. Although tentacles are the most ubiquitous theme, directly summoning a tentacle monster is too thrilling. If it's that big, it could kill people. But after a moment of hesitation, Bayanan still sighed and shook her head. "No. Now is not the time to back down. With the help of that high libido, I am sure I can overcome the shackles in a single blow to make the readers of my comics die of frustration." Elsewhere, with a steaming bowl of noodles in front, suddenly a distant voice echoed, "Hey, here's a smooth, fragrant slime that can be addictive. Tentacles covered in slime will twist even if they only touch lightly." "Hey, you perverted thing!" A purple light flashed along with that sound. The protagonist was eating their noodles, clueless. And in the blink of an eye, the guy appeared in Bayanan's summoning spell. The two stared at each other, simultaneously exclaiming, "Huh?" After a moment of silence, the protagonists turned their head to look at the chaotic drawings on the floor, with a sly smile. "It seems I've discovered something terribly horrible. The legendary Iron Discipline Committee actually has a hidden identity like that. The saintly lady, under the pen name Bai Trok, was once a very famous comic book author. Hearing these words, Bayanan quickly backed away in panic. The protagonist smiled and continued, "So it turns out it's you." She was so panicked that she broke out in a cold sweat, but could only pretend to be ignorant. "What? Bayan Tra'an? You must have mistaken me for—" The protagonist stood up, directing their gaze toward the bed, where her school uniform and bandages were on the other side. "There, once again," Bayanan smirked with a stiff smile. "It's just a cosplay uniform, a mere coincidence." The protagonist turned back to the ground, pointing to a sketch on the ground over there. "That sketch probably depicts our school's teaching building." Bayanan, despite pulling her hair in frustration, explained, "It's normal that some architectural styles are similar." "So your ID card is also here." The protagonist bent down to pick up her ID card. "Here you go." Bayanan could only helplessly shout, "Why is my room so messy?" "Don't look at that photo." She hurriedly snatched her ID card. Internally, Bayanan was completely devastated. It's ruined. Damn it! Why did you summon this? What mistake did I make at which step? Today I just taught you a lesson, and now you find a loophole. I will definitely take this opportunity to get revenge. Just you wait." Seeing her panicked appearance, the protagonist just recalled the main issue and asked seriously, "Did you just use magic to summon me, right? Although it's a bit hard to believe, I have something to ask you." Hearing those words, Bayanan gritted her teeth inwardly, thinking, "He also wants to know more of my secrets." She immediately grabbed a nearby baseball bat, and her voice also turned cold. "When it comes to this matter, there's no other way to talk about magic. I also know a bit about memory erasing magic." As she spoke, she stepped closer, surprising the protagonist. "Why is it that everything at your comic artist's house is like this? Isn't this what you call magic?" But then an incident occurred when she stepped on a piece of paper on the ground, causing her body to lose balance and fall forward. The protagonist's thoughts slowed down. A lonely soul will be moved by sincerity, and an energy-saving advocate also wants a rosy life. But anyway, all of them are living in reality. As for me, following your train of thought, her beautiful body is gradually enveloping me, so she is not an ordinary person. After that fall, Bayanan completely pressed her body against the protagonist's in an extreme. She hastily blushed and stood up. "Enough already. Why are your old tricks showing up like this?" But immediately after, Bayanan's eyes filled with surprise. Something soft had tightly wrapped around her thigh. Bayan A seemed unable to believe it, gazing mesmerized at the objects that had just appeared. "Are these tentacles? What's going on here?" Standing behind the protagonist's back, tentacles grew from their body, and he exclaimed, "If you've been spotted by you already, then I don't need to explain much further." In Bayanan's astonished eyes, tentacles appeared, and the protagonist stood up. "This is exactly what I wanted to ask. Those tentacles appearing on my body, inexplicably, are they related to you?" Others in this situation might be so frightened they'd wet their pants, but in Bayanan's eyes, gazing at the protagonist, there was excitement and thrill about the tentacles are real tentacles. "So you are a tentacle monster? Then my summoning spell wasn't wrong at all." Her attitude also left the protagonist speechless, never expecting someone to be so happy about tentacles. Bayanan ignored the tentacles tightly wrapping around the protagonist's body, still excitedly said, "So this is the feeling of being wrapped by tentacles, the state of being tightly embraced by flesh." Unable to bear the sight any longer, the protagonist shouted, "Stop, or else these tentacles won't be able to retract." After some explanations, Bayanan also understood the ins and outs of the situation. In other words, you also don't know why you became like this. And this is also why you always reject the confessions of those female students, right? The protagonist, sitting opposite, nodded. "Exactly. When I feel excited or aroused, those tentacles appear on my body." Bayanan, still sketching, continued to ask, "And what about those perverted jocks in school?" Mentioning that, the protagonist sighed, "It's just because I want to reject their confessions." The young man helplessly thought to himself, "At first, I thought that after entering university, I could love freely, but unexpectedly, these tentacles sprouted out of nowhere just before the school year started. So, the reason why humans develop tentacles can't be due to bad luck. How can one have a romantic relationship in this situation? How can we hold hands and hug without any excitement? But the price of that summoning is being locked up like in a zoo from a civilized human perspective. More tragically, being sliced into sashimi or taken for research. This part is not copyrighted, so I can't say." Meanwhile, the main character, Bai-an, paints a picture of the hot girl along with tentacles and asks what the painting looks like. The main character blushes, sighs, and says, "Don't take me to try anymore," but Bai-an continues her drawing quest despite hearing that. "Yes, although I summoned you here, your transformation into a tentacle monster has nothing to do with me. Turning a normal person into a magical creature is not something I can do. In fact, I haven't even heard of it." However, the main character, feeling sad, asks, "You're not lying to me, Bai-an?" Bai-an decisively nods. "It's not about using magic to transform. If I want to transform, I will. However, you were summoned by magic, identified as a demonic artifact with lust. Moreover, your tentacles don't belong to this world. That's for sure." Naturally, being labeled a lustful demon by the girl surprises and shocks the main character because he is inherently solitary, has never accepted a confession or held hands, and Bai-an's voice becomes agitated. "But this good thing allowed me to encounter a humanoid tentacle monster. Weren't you supposed to be established as a heavenly sacred being or something? I decide that you will be a reference for my future works. Just by observing you, I'm sure I can create pieces that are both authentic and playful for my comics. Finally, you're saved." After a moment of stunned silence, the main character, the guy strides out of the room. "I'm really sorry I couldn't do it. If there's a chance, I'll contact you again." But immediately after, the main character hears the word "stop" uttered by Bai-an. Indeed, his steps become stiff and stop right before the room door. The main character is confused, wondering what's going on and why he can't move. He only sees Bai-an placing her hand on his shoulder. The girl, looking dangerous, softly says, "Do you think summoning is that simple? To prevent summoned objects from getting out of control, there must be something like a contract." Bai-an's hand grasps his seductive tentacles and asks, "Do you think you can escape?" Feeling the tension of her soul touching his back, the main character screams, "What are you doing? A contract? What kind of contract?" Meanwhile, Bai-an gently brushes and says, "It's a special summoning contract. Once something happens to me, you'll have more problems. As long as I want, we can collaborate. When I say something, you perform it." She speaks while removing her shirt to reveal her smooth shoulders. "For example, if I want to do something, you have to do it on this side." The main character is completely unable to control his body and mimics her actions exactly. The guy blushes and panics. "Stop, stop, stop! What's wrong with my body? Why can't I control it?" Anyone seeing these sketches would be very pleased to watch. The main character's eyes become angrily threatening, but he also doesn't want people to know his identity as a real-world artist. "Aren't you afraid I'll reveal everything?" Facing this threat, Bai-an laughs. "Do you really think about the consequences? Even if you perform the same actions, males and females have different body structures. The same action can lead to different results. Do you know what miracles will happen? For example," she says, then smiles enchantingly and scratches her secret spot, making noises. This situation is truly something children shouldn't see. Naturally, the main character, with his body being controlled, performs similar actions. His eyes well up with fear from the bizarre emotions arising. Finally, he has to scream helplessly, "I give up." Bai-an stands behind him, nodding in satisfaction. In reality, her inner self isn't as calm as her outward appearance. She's also worried, wondering if she's going too far. But summoning him has become a reality, and now there's no other way. After hesitating for a moment, she becomes resolute, telling herself she can't miss this opportunity. She wants to become the top creator of this underground comic world, to perfect herself, and will do anything. Then Bai-an gently snaps her fingers, and immediately the main character feels his body lighten and regain control. "You're now free from the magic," Bai-an continues. "Anyway, I'll let you go first. Wait for me to plan the next steps." Hearing this, the main character's face darkens with frustration. "Do I still need to have a plan? If you want to participate, just start directly." The main character's words and smile make Bai-an curious. "Start what?" Then her tentacles tightly wrap around him. "Do you want to tell me it's magic? Isn't this the kind of thing we're dealing with? My body is being lifted into the air with countless tentacles." Bai-an starts to panic, horrified. "Who would want to do this to you now?" Seeing her panic, the main character replies, "Ha! Not bad at first, but why are you resisting so fiercely now? Don't worry, even though I can control these tentacles, they're not exceptional." Bai-an is completely powerless and cannot control them. She tries to suppress the bizarre sensations these tentacles bring to her body. "But if it's like this, what should I use to draw?" my hind legs. Hearing this, one of her tentacles lowers her arm as the main character says, then let go of one of your arms. Bayan, both angry and embarrassed, blushes. Her legs are still suspended in the air by the tentacles in an inverted position. She helplessly cries out, enough, let me down. After a while, both temporarily set aside their initial grievances, and a new storyline is created by Bayan. A scene of a girl being hung upside down by tentacles. Bayan immediately uploads this drawing online and receives feedback. She happily exclaims, after using you as a reference, the reviews have indeed improved a lot. But why are there still people like this? She wonders as she reads the comments. Wow, the tentacle textures have improved so quickly. Did you buy Octopus for reference? It's amazing. If artists do this, there's no need for further practice. I'm blown away. Bayan exclaims, and this name too. Isn't this exaggeration? The guy named Bantu Kwai said he had never seen such tentacles. I only thought of the summoning technique. It seems like the effectiveness has increased significantly now. Suddenly, Bayan turns to look at the main character suspiciously. Why have you been tapping your phone since we started? Moreover, why are you so scared? The main character nervously stares into his phone, awkwardly shaking his head. Is there something like that? I was just replying to some messages. But in reality, he's very annoyed and is trying to delete his previous comment. That's the comment saying that the author has never seen a tentacle. So how could anyone know she is an artist? They didn't expect she would dig her own grave. Moreover, the system's attempt to delete your comment was a little while later. Bayanan happily played with the tentacles and then provided comments. However, based on her habit of painting, I belong to the type who observes and references. Even if I have personal experience, I still couldn't see the full picture. For a localized area like this, it's fine, but if you want to expand it to the whole body, then buy yourself a doll. Hearing that, the main character loudly shouted to stop, saying that if you keep talking about the review, I won't just sit quietly. And at this moment, the girl excitedly handed him a draft and said, by the way, I've also drawn a comic draft. What do you think of it? He took the draft and the main character exclaimed, wow, that's pretty fast. Let me take a look. During the process, as you read the story, Bayanan excitedly stood beside to observe. However, the expression on the main character's face gradually became calm. At the end, his aura suddenly disappeared. He vanished completely, leaving Bayanan dumbfounded. The main character, with a calm expression, sighed. With calmness, you can retract the tentacles. Indeed, to create a good work, one must have a peaceful and tranquil mind. Hearing that, Bayanan standing beside questioned, what do you mean? Is my comic so bad? The main character scratched his head and explained, although the drawings are NDT 0, the content is too generic, and your plot isn't different from others. Bayanan, I'm curious, don't readers tend to skip over important scenes? So going straight to the highlights isn't bad, right? Suddenly, the main character slammed the draft onto the bed and seriously reminded, don't underestimate underground comic. Because of your thinking, there are more and more boring works. Readers are very selective. If you want to achieve a masterpiece, you must have a compelling plot and characters, not just sexual content. You almost shouted, the less sexual content, the more it is. This comment seemed to awaken a thought in Bayanan's heart. She mumbled plot and observation, and then suddenly said, so we can only switch to another path? Bayanan smiled and pointed at the main character, saying, you go and date other people, while I'll stand beside and secretly observe. In this way, both the plot and the visuals can be perfectly resolved. Emphasize your own identity, which is to flirt with other girls. Hearing this request, the main character was shocked and stone-faced. It's not what I meant. It's not about this. Bayanan excitedly smiled and patted the main character on the shoulder. Ah, finally you can date beautiful girls. Congratulations. Congratulations. Looking at her smile, the main character was very annoyed. Clearly, only you are the happiest person here. Earlier, I told you it's useless. Why are you telling me to go flirt with girls? Every time I get excited or hyped up, these tentacles grow out of me. You're telling me to go flirt with, so isn't that like telling me to commit suicide? Standing before the main character's anger, Bayanan appeared oblivious. Huh? What did you just say? You are the one who came up with this idea, so I assume you like it yourself. The main character, frustrated, shouted, don't be so reckless. Seeing that, Bayanan smiled and stepped closer, saying, don't worry. If you get caught, I'll also get into trouble, right? Because we're in the same boat, I'll find a way to help you. While saying that, the girl also used her hand to hold the main character's handsome face and continued, "Moreover, I won't push you to the brink." Or to say, you're the type of person who, when standing next to me, can't suppress your thoughts. Holding that tentacle being provoked by the girl's suggestive actions makes you dizzy. The main character stammered. Seeing that, Bayanon released him. So there's no problem, right? Approach them and then make them fall for you. And let me find inspiration for the comic. Just follow me and I won't let you down. You can not only have a sweet romantic relationship with the beautiful girls in the academy, but also can remove the curse that turned you into a tentacle monster. Upon hearing these words, the main character was shocked and panicked, hastily asking, "Do you mean you can turn me back into a normal human?" Bayana nodded and sat down on the bed. "Of course I know magic. You saw it yourself, right? Now, in front of you is a female demon inheriting the family's magic lineage of Although we need to investigate why you were cursed, the curse cannot be removed immediately. However, for this type of magic, you won't find anyone more proficient than me. You help me draw the comic, and I will find a way to remove the curse from you. That's the deal. What do you think?" He silently looked at the confident appearance of the beautiful girl in front of him. A moment later, as Bayanon began to lose patience, the main character nodded. "I agree with you." The answer made Bayanon smile with satisfaction. "Good. Then we can't delay any longer. First," the girl said, putting her foot on her bed, pulling out something to begin. The thing pulled out from under the bed was a box with a handle. The main character looked at the item fearfully, wondering, starting on the bed with a box? Not knowing what to think, the guy was startled and stepped back. Wait, I've seen this kind of scenario many times in comics. Moreover, she herself had drawn such a plot. Why would there be signs inside, meaning the thing used for interrogation? No, such cruel and inhumane actions are absolutely not allowed. Looking at the subtle smile on the girl's face, the main character thought deeply. Of course, Bayanon didn't know the main character's feelings. The girl eagerly hugged her box, so the first step was to find the target of his action. The box was opened, and countless photos fell out from it. The main character looked at those photos, becoming confused. "Oh, photos?" Seeing his confused expression, Bayana tilted her head, questioning, "Huh? It's not photos then?" The main character could only awkwardly change the subject. This topic is over." Then the guy observed the photos under his feet. They were all pictures of youthful schoolgirls. "Are these photos of our school students? Where did you get them and do this?" While bending down to pick up a photo, the main character continued, "These photos don't look like." Bayanan mischievously explained, "Some time ago, the Student Association asked me to take photos of the school's disciplinary situation to promote the school. So at that time, Upon hearing that, the main character pointed to a photo and questioned, "So this isn't anonymous? Moreover, there's a photo of a teacher's head. Do you even want to conquer teachers?" Bayanan shook her head and laid on the bed. "Don't worry about such trivial issues. The key point is that our first step now is to find your first target." The main character was speechless. "I still need to find? I can't stand the rejections I've had to endure every week." While glancing at the photos, Bai-Ana squinted her eyes and instructed, "Of course, you can't just choose anyone. They must have a special personality to attract readers. It's best to say in a really funny way, impossible. In the case that we have such a target, how can the main character possibly keep up with Bayanan's train of thought? But there's one thing. Bayanan has to admit that it's really hard to find." After finishing her words, her gaze stopped at a photo. Then she happily picked up the photo and told the main character, "Ah, here it is. Go and flirt with Kim Tuyet." "Huh?" The main character was startled and panicked. "What kind of joke is this? It can't be like that." But Bayanan didn't pay attention to his objection, instead staring at the photo and praising NDT0. "No, it's this appearance. Kyukam Tuyet is the head lady of the entire school. This school is famous for hating boys. The number of rejected boys could form 2 circles around. Kyukam Tuyet is a beautiful girl with light purple pupils, somewhat cold and distant. Some people say she has no interest in boys. It's said that her entire environment is just a small part of her family's assets. If you make her unhappy, at the very least you'll be expelled, and worse, you're talking about disappearing from the mortal world. Very special, isn't it? It seems like you're very good at gathering daily intelligence, huh?" Kyukamtuit's family is truly very wealthy. Moreover, she is actually a lesbian, not interested in men. Knowing this news, the main character firmly denied, so this matter is basically unapproachable. The sexual orientation is already different. But unexpectedly, Bayan-an made an even more horrible proposal. Then, you become a woman. Is that not allowed? The main character stood frozen, jaw dropped. Then he became like a stone statue, his inner self going silent so that no one could understand. Seeing the main character's strong and intense reaction, Bayan-an scornfully laughed. Meanwhile, the main character once again probed specifically, "What do I have to do? Cook? I want you to disguise yourself as a woman to approach Kyukamtuit, win her heart, and date her as a girl. First, let me see." Upon hearing this, the girl had already checked the main character's physique. Inside, Bayan-an began to ponder how to turn him into the perfect dish that Kyukamtuit would like. The next day at school, a sweet and beautiful female student with shiny golden hair appeared. On her innocent face appeared a shy blush, yet inside she was screaming. Just beginning, yet already wanting to play big like that? From head to toe, the main character had transformed into a girl in a spectacular way. If not said, one might think she was some beautiful young lady. Don't look at me anymore. That name, Bahanan, if not for the purpose of eliminating Shoot 2, only a demon would dress like that. It turns out the girl who is coquettishly pouting in this short dress is the main female lead. The guy has to act that way under the gossip and everyone's attention around only made the main character blush all over. Is the uniform she's wearing from our school? Probably not. But a sweet girl like her, why have I never met her before? Meanwhile, the girl who confessed to the main character the day before, upon seeing the female student in front of her, felt a sense of familiarity. The main character was sneaking into the school when a hand slapped his shoulder, along with a call that startled him. "Hey, classmate!" The stubborn cross-dressing guy turned around and saw the beautiful female student curiously asking, "You look very familiar. Have we met before?" The main character panicked, trying to stay calm, and stiffly replied, "Probably not." Luckily, at that moment, another friend appeared, pulling the girl away. "Little Fee, what are you doing?" At the same time, the friend also apologized to the main character. "I'm really sorry." Watching the backs of the two of them, the main character could still hear their conversation from yesterday. "Weren't you rejected by the main character? Why are you using that old trick today? Even the gender trends have changed." Hearing this, the main character sighed inwardly, wondering if he should find somewhere to hide. Outside the school gate, a luxurious car stopped. Seeing that, the surrounding female students excitedly cheered. "Ah, Miss Dai is coming!" Miss Dai? Hearing that form of address, the cross-dressing main character who was walking suddenly stopped and startled, looking back. He saw a female attendant respectfully open the luxurious car door and invite the young lady. Then a pair of slender legs stepped out of the car. It was a female student with black hair and cold eyes. She took her bag from the attendant's hand and stepped into the schoolyard amidst everyone's admiration. "Ah, Miss Dai, it seems this lady has many fans in the school." As for the main character, his mouth gaped when he saw the fashionable outfit on that lady. Indeed, she is a fashion runner. He himself also realized that the lady was Kyushuan Kam. Around her, Kyushuan Kam always exuded a strong presence and an atmosphere that didn't allow strangers, making the main character worry and wonder how he could start a conversation with her. It seemed that the main character's gaze was too direct, and Kyushuan Kam, who was walking, she turned her head sharply and looked straight at the main character. Then she tilted her head and asked, "Classmate, why are you staring at me?" Seeing that, the main character became panicked, hastily waving his hand and saying, "It's a misunderstanding, I'm truly sorry." But inside, he was continuously shouting to himself, "What am I saying? With such a good opportunity, why didn't I just go with her and talk for a while?" But her demeanor is like this. She walked past and didn't pay any attention to the cross-dressing main character. Her coldness and aloofness made it basically impossible to start a conversation. At the same time, a pair of binoculars was observing the situation from afar. A moment later on the rooftop, friend Anne excitedly confirmed, "Yes, that's right. The young lady's demeanor is exactly what we want. Only girls like her are worth conquering." Meanwhile, the main character was beside himself with worry. Weakly, he asked, "Are you sure you want me to flirt with that Miss Dai? Have you ever thought about what would happen if we were caught?" Hearing that, friend Anne, and suddenly turned around and her attitude became even more agitated. Caught? Isn't that better? I can't wait until then. Seeing you disguised as a woman and approaching the young lady at the peak of the perfect couple's moment, you then discover that the person beside you, that is the desperate face of the beautiful young woman after discovering that her lover is actually someone of the love and disgust have intertwined into complex emotions, wanting to leave but unable to escape. On her face is full of disgust, yet she does not resist. Next is, at this point, the main character could no longer bear to hear it, hurriedly trying to stop, unable to say anything further. The young man's mood now felt as if someone was strangling him. If it were to be exposed, even only this fandom would tear me apart into pieces. But Anan shook his head encouragingly. Don't worry, I'll mobilize the student council's connections to help you. Your top priority now is for you, disguised as a woman, to approach Kyotuet Cam, win her heart, and date her as a girl. I have arranged your new identity. You will be in the same class as Kyotuet Cam next. Now, go to class quickly. A moment later, in the classroom, the students in this class encountered a new female student. They whispered among themselves, "Lucky she's so beautiful and didn't skip school. She's so cute, and her figure is also amazing. I noticed her when she first came to school this morning. I didn't expect her to appear in our class." At this moment, a backpack was slammed onto the desk. Along with it, a beautiful figure sat down in his seat. Glancing to the side, looking at that cold face, the main character was briefly astonished. Kyotuet Cam, she's sitting there. How did that happen? At this moment, the teacher also opened the door and walked in. Now, we will begin roll call and prepare to start the... Meanwhile, the main character tried to wave and greet the cold lady, saying, "Hi, hello." Truly, she was an ice queen. When Kyotuet Cam only responded with a cold, "hello," she didn't even lift her eyes to look. This made our main character feel like he was falling into an ice cave, a sense of distance that was infinitely far away, not her aura. It felt like being in another world. Meanwhile, the teacher was roll-calling Kyotuet Cam's name, and she answered with a sound. After that, it was Teutron's name. The first time she called the name, no one answered. The teacher repeated, calling Teutron's name once, until the third time, the teacher shouted loudly, "Teutron!" The main character was startled to remember that it was his alias. The young man awkwardly stood up. At this moment, the teacher spoke up. "You're a transfer student, right? Please get along with everyone." "Yes, ma'am." The surrounding girls whispered again. As expected, it's transfer student Teutron. This is a cool name, really catchy, easy to remember his name, huh? Oh, isn't that famous guy's name Teochin? It's just a different tone. At this moment, Kyotuet Cam used a suspicious or questioning tone. "Teochin?" Hearing the people's whispers, the main character felt both scared and embarrassed, not daring to look directly. "Bananan, what did you change your name to?" At this moment, the young man heard the ongoing whispers behind him, causing his eyes to widen in fear. He recalled the feeling as if a classmate, Teutron, was also... These words made the main character widen his eyes and grind his teeth. "Have I been discovered?"
At that moment, the teacher forcefully slammed her hand on the desk. This caused all the students in the class to jump in fright. The teacher shouted in front of the class, "Everyone, be in order. All you do from morning till night is speculating. Is there really someone who deliberately disguises himself as a girl and forges a bunch of documents just to attend class?" Chu Chin became bewildered upon hearing the news about falsifying papers for a male-to-female disguise. At that moment, the teacher reminded him, "Sit down, you don't need to worry about it, just be sociable, okay?" Although a bit confused, Chu Chin nodded, "Yes." He plopped down into his chair, thinking, "I really do want to get along with everyone." Then he glanced over at his classmate, Kyo Kamtuayat, and thought, "This isn't enough, first I need to close the gap between us." On her side, Kyo Kamtuayat's eyes held a trace of melancholy as she softly murmured, "Chu Chin, Chu Tran." Chu Chin spoke up, causing her to look a bit surprised. "Hey, friend, you're a classmate, aren't you?" She was so taken aback she couldn't even reply. From his perspective, he appeared like a pitiful female student, with eyes welling up as if about to cry and lips trembling slightly, when he said, "I didn't bring my book. Could I take a look at yours?" Kyo Kamtuayat, with a cold expression, gave a slight nod. At that moment, Chu Chin grasped the chair and pulled it closer to her. The atmosphere between them was so pleasant as he leaned in to look at the book with Kyo Kamtuayat. Inside, Chu Chin silently rejoiced, "Great, the hardest part of any beginning is behind me. Next is..." Yet from his point of view, Kyo Kamtuayat's face was as cold as ice. utterly devoid of friendliness toward him. He felt a bit confused and wondered, what should I do next? Should I pretend to faint and collapse onto her? Chu-Chin silently imagined that if he were to collapse onto Kyo-Kam-Chuayet, it would be such a headache, but then he thought that idea just wasn't appropriate. Then he considered another strange idea to capture her attention. He even pictured himself standing on the desk and shouting, "I declare," yet he couldn't bring himself to do something so absurd. Next, he thought about simply taking the initiative and making a move, but then he shook his head, that wouldn't work either. He secretly thought, if I keep going like this, then I'll end up as a character straight out of a comic, classmate Kyo, hehehe. After all, one of us has to be proactive, and pairing two passive characters together is just a ridiculous premise. Suddenly, Kyo-Kam-Chuayet reached out and touched his thigh, startling him. His face darkened as worry and a trace of fear mingled within him. What exactly was she planning to do? Just as he was lost in thought, Kyo-Kam-Chuayet's full, round breasts brushed against him. This made him feel unsettled. "You okay?" he managed to ask. His eyes briefly darted toward her, his expression still fraught with anxiety. Facing him, Kyo-Kam-Chuayet remained very stern, her voice deep as she observed. "You seem very tense, don't you?" Then she flashed a ferocious smile at her classmate, Chu-Tran. Chu-Chin thought, what? Why is she acting like this? After that, Kyo-Kam-Chuayet repeatedly licked her lips as she softly called out, "Chu-Tran." She even slightly loosened her tight blouse to reveal her perky breasts. Then she slowly moved closer as if she wanted to devour this new classmate. Just as expected, she inched forward and gently touched Chu-Chin's nose, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. Suddenly, a voice calling out snapped him back to reality, his classmate, Chu-Tran. It turned out that everything that had just happened was merely the result of his overactive imagination. Looking into her skeptical eyes, Chu-Chin stuttered, I just wanted to ask, where is the restroom?" Then he bolted out, shouting loudly, "I need to use the restroom." He stepped out into the cold, windy corridor, wondering what he had just done. It felt as though in the blink of an eye, he'd become trapped. What on earth was happening? Was it all just an illusion? He pursed his lips tightly. At the first chance he got, he would have to confirm everything with Barkanen. Now, standing in front of the restroom door, he felt a bit bewildered. The most important matter now was, he was troubled. Wasn't that the men's restroom? Then he glanced toward the women's restroom. Yes, the women's restroom. He flung the door open and charged in decisively. This had to be it. He slammed the door shut and then lifted up his skirt. From now on, every day he would take care of things at home early in the morning, and then go the entire day without drinking any water. Suddenly, the doorknob creaked, as if someone were trying to push the door in. Startled and a bit shocked, he wondered, how did the door get opened? At that very moment, as the door swung open, he panicked and shouted, "Someone!" A voice answered, "Girl, you don't use the restroom like that." She entered the restroom, raised her hand as a subtle signal for silence, and in a low voice said, "It's me, Chu-Chin, hurry up and call out Barkanen." "Disciplinary inspector, do you even check the restroom?" The Lady Duong, casting a suspicious glance at Anan, continued, "That's not right, I clearly locked the door. So how did you open it?" With her hands on her hips and a mischievous tone, she replied, "Of course, with magic. How could something as trivial as opening a door ever be a challenge for me?" Chu-Chin, lost in thought, wondered, why would anyone use magic to secure the restroom door? How ingenious! Anan carefully concealed a magnet in her skirt pocket. But Chu-Chin didn't miss a thing. She glanced at Anan's hand and asked, "What are you hiding there?" "If you get caught off guard," Anan blushed and stammered, No, it's nothing, just a bit of toilet paper. I was worried you wouldn't have any, ha ha." She then raised her hand and firmly closed the door. Leaning her back against the door, she inquired, "So, how's it going between you and Kyo-Kam-Chuayet?" Sitting on the toilet lid, Chu-Chin replied, "We've barely gotten past half a class, how could there be any progress?" In an instant, she advanced, lifting Chu-Chin's skirt and tilting his chin, saying, "How strange, isn't your makeup just adorable?" At that moment, he finally reacted, exclaiming, "Where are you looking?" and adding, "So cute, huh?" Suddenly, Chu-Chin's eyes widened. She tilted her head and began to recount the situation. At that moment, something very peculiar occurred, when my gaze met hers for just a fleeting second. Kyo-Kam-Chuayet's face clearly took on a cunning expression, and then I seemed to see bizarre images. She licked her lips and loosened the front of her blouse. In front of me, she no longer appeared as Kyo-Kam-Chuayet. Not only did her eyes seem dreamy, but she was also unfastening the buttons of her blouse with a smile. She pressed her bosom against Chu Chin and continued, she came close to me, touched me, wanted to kiss me, even desired to devour me. All the while, Kyokamtuiet's voice kept calling out Chu Chin's name, echoing in her mind. I found myself utterly unable to move, as if completely under her spell. After finishing his account, Chu Chin shuddered. Anan, who had been clutching her skirt all along, remarked seductively, it almost sounds like magic, doesn't it? Noticing something, her eyes lit up, and I understood. So it turns out you were simply attracted by her beauty. After all, the girl before you is a highborn miss that many desire but can never have. Anan waved her hand as if to say it was natural. I get it, Chu Chin grumbled, but what do you really understand? Anan covered her mouth with her hand and, laughing, replied, so that's it. It seems I've been interrupting your fun. Using the restroom was just an excuse, I actually wanted to. Before she could finish, Chu Chin rushed over and covered her mouth. Anan blushed and let out a few startled exclamations. Pressing her against the wall, Chu Chin softly admonished, step out, someone's coming from behind the door. A classmate is calling, Chu Fi, you all right? Outside the restroom, two brown-haired girls were chatting. One said, I'm really fine, but today you're at it again, you didn't even spare the girls. Both quickly added, it was all just a misunderstanding. Anan exchanged a glance with Chu Chin and then withdrew her hand. She let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, she hadn't been discovered. Although it's normal for two girls to use the restroom together, sharing the same toilet might be a bit too much. The other girl, fidgeting, continued, geez, I think it's because you're too direct. It'd be better if you used the traditional methods to court a guy. What traditional method, though? She replied bluntly, that approach would be so stunning it could knock out both your friend, Chu Chin, and Anan, leaving everyone in shock. The other girl quickly retorted in a louder voice, what? That, too, is traditional. Suddenly, someone felt an unexpected pressure in front of her. Chu Chin looked down and immediately discovered that her full, perky bosom was pressed against him. She panicked, quickly pushed it away, and thought, damn it, I forgot I'm here. At that moment, Chu Chin lost his composure and Anan hurried over to cover her mouth, pressing the two of them against the wall. From outside, a friend called out, Chu Fi, hurry up and come out. Anan's eyes lit up with a fiery gleam. What are you thinking? If we get caught, I'm totally done for. Chu Chin cast a meaningful look toward the one before him. Yet, they became even more tightly entwined. When he looked down, Chu Chin's mind was suddenly overwhelmed. Hurry up, I can't take it any longer. In an instant, one of the blouse's buttons flew off. Anan blushed and exclaimed, huh? Out of nowhere, a purple tentacle advanced toward the two of them. It coiled around the bodies of the two girls, and one of them cried out in alarm, hey, wait for me. Anan's face turned a deep rosy hue as she stood there, breathing seductively, her bosom still pressed against Chu Chin's chin. In panic, she pleaded, can't you hold back for a moment? Hasn't enough time passed? With difficulty, he replied, I don't really want to, but this is the natural order, so please, don't let it spiral out of control. The moans from inside the restroom reached Chu Fi, who was standing outside and hearing every sound. The girl, blushing in shock, was taken aback by the voices of the two female students. Immediately, she bolted out of the restroom, stammering, stop, you're disturbing me. Anan threw her head back and panted, as Chu Chin, catching his breath, said, he's gone now, let me go, while the tentacles continued to emerge. As the tentacles caressed their bodies, Anan apologized, I'm sorry, I can't control it at the moment. It might take some time before I can regain control. Something was prodding her, prompting her to ask hesitantly, it seems something hard is poking me, doesn't it? In horror, she gaped and shouted, I really underestimated you. Are you still hiding any more terrible secrets? After saying that, she crouched down, and Anan suddenly sprang up and hurriedly explained, it's a magnet, then, in disbelief, she exclaimed, a magnet. She continued impatiently, anyway, if you and Kyokamtuiet aren't making any progress, that's not the way I plan to help you get closer to her. Hearing that, Chu Chin sighed and asked, so, do you have a plan? Anan, bright and alert, replied, of course I do. The Vongdao method may be a bit old-fashioned, but it's called that precisely because it delivers the best results. Striking a beautiful pose and pointing, she continued, hero saves the beauty, we're going to put the hero rescues the beauty plan into action. Chu Chin sighed and asked, So you mean I should rescue Kyokamtuiet? That's not a problem at all, Anan, clearly puzzled, shouted, are you kidding me? The sly girl put her hand over her mouth and laughed. Now, of course, you're the one who's going to be rescued. While Chu Chin was busy cleaning the toilet bowl, he remarked, got a plan? Barkanan responded, naturally, I do. She said, the Vong Dao method might be somewhat old-fashioned, but it's precisely because it works so well that it's called Vong Dao. Then Barkanan said excitedly, Hero saves the beauty, we're going to execute the Hero saves the beauty plan. Hearing that, Chu Chin sighed and asked, so you're telling me to go rescue Kyokamtuiet? And she silently thought, asterisk, there's nothing wrong with that, asterisk. But then Barkanan suddenly shouted, what on earth are you talking about? She explained, now, naturally, you're the one who's meant to be rescued. Chu Chin, bewildered, asked, rescue me? Even though you're a member of the disciplinary committee, I silently cursed a couple of filthy words and thought, asterisk, what a wonderful image. If that's the case, it could really cause big trouble. Asterisk. But if she doesn't take action, then what's the plan? If you're so gutsy, then show some character, let's see what you've got. Barkanan snapped. She pointed at the badge on her shirt and said, just trust my judgment. You've only had a chance to interact with Kyokamtuiet after entering the class, yet your taste is really not bad. Barkanan grabbed her collar and emphasized, then there's no issue at all, no matter how icy a beauty she might be, she's still human. However, Chu Chin still wasn't entirely convinced. Just imagine, he said, if someone appears, interacts with you, and then suddenly vanishes for the entire class, what would you think? Barkanan then tugged her coat down and said, when something unusual happens, you'll definitely take notice. She tucked her blouse into her skirt and said, next, let's see how you handle things. There, done. In the classroom, Chu Thin sat there alone, wondering, why hasn't she come back yet? Maybe she's lost, has a stomachache, or perhaps I scared her. She went through each possibility one by one. She recalled that earlier, a group of female students were chatting, so, where should we go next? I feel like taking a little trip. Chu Thin thought, should I go look for her? Wouldn't that be a bit strange? On her way, she encountered a group of curious female students. Hey, you're a transfer student, right? Why are you just standing there? Have you been caught by the disciplinary committee or something? She was extremely annoyed by the crowding onlookers. Barkanan said, just how much attention do you want to attract, anyway? At that moment, Barkanan appeared and said, according to Regulation 35 of our school, every student must wear a clean and tidy uniform when arriving. Tucking in a corner of your uniform into your skirt, like you just did, violates the school rules. Which class are you in, anyway? Then she tugged Chu Chin's uniform out, leaving him dumbfounded. Is that acceptable? Before she could explain, Barkanan said, oh, I just remembered. It seems you're the new transfer student, unfamiliar around here this morning, isn't it? You're a student at our school, yet you've blatantly violated our regulations. You must be punished. Suddenly, a beautiful female student stepped forward and shouted, enough. Kyokamtuiet said, it's perfectly normal for a transfer student not to know the school rules. Barkanan retorted, even if you're a transfer student, once you come to our school, you have the responsibility and obligation to follow our regulations. Then she asked, or do you want to be punished as well? How boring, she said, and then turned and walked away. Chu Chin thought sadly, I already told you so, why does it have to be so simple? Suddenly, she took Chu Chin's hand, which left him surprised. Huh? Wait a minute. We haven't even spoken in class yet. Then why are we holding hands like this? Can friendships between female students really develop that fast? From behind, Barkanan clapped her hands. Barkanan cheerfully announced, plan approved. Chu Chin, scowling, said, what do you mean? This kind of relationship is developing way too fast. She looked at Kyokamtuiet, who was hesitantly holding her hand, and said, if you keep going like this, will it really work? It's not balanced to focus all your attention on just one person. If he continues to cause you trouble, just let me know, he won't dare do anything to you, I promise. Then she replied, that's enough, and she couldn't help but admire how distinctively the rich speak. Looking down at the hand she was holding, she shyly said, sorry. Chu Chin, surprised, said, oh, you're shy? Did you just say all that because you were angry? But why would you be angry? Kyo hesitantly asked. Earlier, you suddenly went to the restroom during class and took so long to come back. Did I scare you? I'm sorry, I'm just not very good at socializing. Hearing that, Chu-chin quickly said, No, not at all. It's just that this is my first time here, so I got a bit too anxious, ha ha ha. Kyo forced an awkward laugh, though inwardly she thought that he had indeed been frightened. She sighed in relief. Well, that's good. Then she added, Don't get me wrong, I don't mean to help you, I just don't want to see that arrogant look on other people's faces. Oh, so that's it, she thought. She recalled the words, Don't get me wrong, I was merely startled to recognize Kyo who was rumored to be a cold girl but was, in truth, a Tisander, a person who says one thing and does another. She looked at her blushing and thought, could it be that she meant she might go searching for him again? After all, there's a trace of excitement there. Suddenly, a male student ran over, loudly calling out to his classmate. The bespectacled male student cheerfully said, Truly, you must have seen the letter I wrote to you already, right? Do you really agree with me? As one of Kyo suitors, I've heard that many boys have declared their love for her, yet it seems that all of them have ended disastrously. Could it be that this guy, too, was hired by Barkanen to have Kyo show off her badass and dashing demeanor in front of him? Seeing Kyo trembling, she wondered. But why was she so frightened?